Hey, what's up, everybody? I've been getting a lot of questions recently, like, why'd you start getting into God? Like, why are all of a sudden you posting all this stuff about Jesus and stuff? So I wanted to kind of break it down a little bit for anybody who wanted to know. Um, so basically, let me preface it with this. My entire life, I never understood why, but I always knew that I wasn't happy, right? Like, I've been all around the world. I've had more money than I could know what to do with. I've had beautiful girlfriends, houses, cars. No matter what, I was still miserable, right? Like I remember going to Ocean City a lot of times, and like I wouldn't even go to the beach. Like there was just I'd go to other countries, New York. I mean, I've been everywhere, and I was never happy. Um, so that'll kind of lead into where I'm going right now, and that is about 3 years ago. I was at home one night, and my girlfriend at the time was cooking spaghetti in the kitchen, and I accidentally hit the pot of boiling water, and it spilled all over me, and I got like third-degree burns all down my leg, and it was horrible. It was really, really bad. And so I went to the hospital, and during my recovery, they prescribed me Percocet. And so about 3 days in, I guess I took in a little too much, and I got high off it. And I was like, oh man, this feels good. For the first time, really, I want to say ever, I was like, this is what I've been searching for. Like, this is filling that hole. Like, I don't feel miserable anymore. Like, I'm finding enjoyment and stuff. And so when my prescription ran out, I started buying it on the street. And yeah, that is a horrible addiction. It got to a point there where I was spending like $800 to $1,000 a day, right? And I always say one of the worst things is to be a drug addict with an unlimited pot of money, right? Because most drug addicts, if they're out of money, they don't get any more drugs, right? But my money never ended. So at the time, I was running Sorrentos, and let's just say I had quite a bit of money at my disposal. So yeah, I started running through it. I mean, like I said, $800,000 a day. I'm talking $25,000 a month at one point, right? So it finally got to the point where, for a while there, I don't know if it was kind of running the line of stealing and taking because I was running the restaurant at the time, right? But it eventually crossed the line to where it was just there was no justifying the amount of money I was taking, and my mom finally had to say, "Look, this is enough. You got to go." And in retrospect, I totally understand. At the time, I was pretty angry because, I was in my addiction. I was like, I do everything for this place, yada, yada, yada. So, long story short, I was like, okay, can you help me start my own business so I can, go out and support myself on my own? And she said yes. And that's how Pivot came about. I started Pivot. So when I started Pivot, I still had quite a bit of money in the bank. I was still running through, $600 to $800 a day. Um, and so fast forward about a year and a half, say end of 2018, uh, I was not enjoying it anymore. It was miserable. To not be able to feel like you can control what you're doing, to wake up every morning and be like, all right, today's it, I'm done. And to still go down that path every single day, it's mentally taxing. Um, I did some absolutely horrible things while I was on drugs to my girlfriend, to friends, family. I mean, I burned a lot of. I did so many horrible things. Um, and I started getting miserable. I was truly miserable. I was depressed. I was angry all the time. And most of all, I was watching myself not only destroy myself, but destroy the business that I had created, being Pivot. And I created something pretty amazing with Pivot. So basically, it started getting to the point where, for the first time in my life, I was getting low on money, right? I mean, that had never been a problem my whole life because, again, my family owning Sorrentos and running it. So I was like, if this doesn't stop, I'm going to go broke, and my mom is not going to help me. And I still couldn't stop. So during this point, the little bit of solstice I would find was I'd go on drives. I would just hop in my car and drive like 5-6 hours out into the middle of nowhere, get a hotel room, drive back the next day. But every time I would do this drive, about 2 hours into it, when I was totally zoned out, just, you know, just completely, like, I would almost call it like a meditative state. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but I don't really care. I would hear these voices in my head. And it's really hard for me to remember back and remember what they were saying, or not, now I know what it was, but remember what was being said. But I know that it was very profound. And this started to make me question, like, all right, I'm definitely hearing something. And what's being said is not just random words. It's stuff that resonates. It's things that, you know, it was crazy. So I started really, like, trying to figure out, okay, what's going on? And then I came across, I had happened to come across some stuff on YouTube and online. And this is going to sound crazy, but I really don't care. I started to think there was aliens. I was like, all right, there's aliens talking to me. Like, there's billions of planets, right? There's most likely another life form somewhere. Maybe we were planted here by them, whatever, right? So I'm going down this road. But mind you, through all this, through, the drives, the voices, starting to think there's aliens, I was still absolutely miserable. And I was still spiraling out of control as to where I couldn't stop. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't stop doing the drugs. So one night I was at Pivot in Catonsville, and I was like miserable as usual. I was like, I gotta walk somewhere. I was like, I'm trying to get out of my head again. And that's really, as I look back on my life, that's always what I was trying to do. Whether it would be hopping on a train and going somewhere, or hopping on a plane and going somewhere, I was trying to find somewhere where I wasn't miserable, right? But your demons are gonna follow you anywhere. You can't escape them. So one night I walked out of Pivot. I'm walking down the street, down Frederick Road, and this guy's standing there with a Bible, right? And he's like, do you want to hear a Bible verse? And I was like, no, I'm good. So I got like 10 feet past, and that voice that would come in my head when I was driving was like, you need to turn around and listen. So I turned around, and I listened. And it didn't really resonate with me right away. But I started to really think about it. And as, that guy, again, he gave me a Bible. And as I started to read it and I started to think about it, like, at its simplest form, a human being is absolutely amazing is not even a big enough word, right? Like, how complex we are, how complex this universe is, right? Like, no matter what you want to believe, I was able to believe that, all right, something had to create us, right? Because if you asked me to create a human, I couldn't do it. None of, this earth, everything about it, I was like, all right, whatever you want to call God, God, whatever, I think that's what's talking to me, right? Because that voice in my head started saying, connecting these dots, right? So again, at its simplest form, God to me is just the most beautiful, amazing energy, life form, everything wrapped into one, regardless you want to believe, right? And let me tell you, the more I started going down the path, my addiction started to go away. I tried everything. And all I know is that when I started believing in God, when I started reading the Bible, when I started putting faith in Him, He saved me. He saved me from destruction. Because had I not stopped, right now I wouldn't be making this video, Pivot wouldn't be here, and I'd be homeless somewhere. So, yeah, I hope that answers some people's question of why. I've kind of thrown my all into it, because I know how quickly I can go back to where I was. And not only do I not want to go back to where I was when I was doing drugs, but I don't want to go back to where I was before I was doing drugs, because now I can go places and I can enjoy it, right? I can go to the beach and see the beauty and have joy and have hope. So I don't really care what people think, this is what happened to me. I'm happy. And Yeah, but the Spirit has definitely been putting on my mind to share the story, um, because even if it can help one person who might be on the fringe or going through something, that's good enough for me. So, yeah, if you have any questions, just comment or message me or whatever, but have a good night.